Welcome to the channel Numis Hunt USA, and today, we are diving deep into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because what if I told you that a coin minted in the year 2003, a simple, everyday, ordinary-looking Lincoln penny, the kind you might toss into a jar, drop on the sidewalk without even bending down to pick it up, or casually hand to a cashier without a second thought, is secretly worth $9 million? Yes, you heard that right. $9 million. For a coin that technically has a face value of just 1 cent. Now I need you to stay with me right here, because this is just the first coin we are covering today, and I promise you, the coins coming up later in this video are even more jaw-dropping, even more valuable, and even more likely to be hiding somewhere you would never expect. So do not click away, because what comes next could genuinely change the way you look at every single coin you ever touch again. But first, let's talk about this incredible 2003 Lincoln penny and why a handful of collectors around the world are absolutely obsessed with finding one. The Denver Mint in 2003 was churning out billions of pennies, literally billions. And in that enormous ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, something extraordinary happened, something the mint never intended, something that slipped past quality control and entered circulation undetected. And that something is what transformed an ordinary cent into a collector's holy grail worth $9 million. Now, let's set the scene a little. The year is 2003. The Denver Mint is operating at full capacity, producing pennies at a rate that most people can barely imagine, and the pressure to keep up with demand is enormous. In conditions like that, errors happen. And when errors happen on rare occasions with just the right combination of die misalignment, double striking, off-metal planchet mistakes, or dramatic doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the result is a coin that is so visually distinct, so unmistakably wrong in all the right ways, that the numismatic community goes absolutely wild when one surfaces. The 2003 Lincoln penny that commands a $9 million valuation is believed to be an extraordinary example of a multiple error coin, a coin that somehow escaped every single checkpoint at the Denver Mint and found its way into circulation, possibly sitting in someone's change for years, decades even, completely unnoticed, completely unappreciated. Think about that. $9 million, just sitting in someone's penny jar on a kitchen counter. Now here's what makes this particular coin so incredibly valuable to collectors. First, the rarity. Experts believe only a small single-digit number of these error specimens exist in the entire world, and of those, perhaps only 1 or 2 are in the kind of pristine condition that pushes the auction value to its absolute maximum ceiling. Second, the visual impact. When you hold one of these coins and examine it under proper magnification, the doubling on Lincoln's date, the ghost images on the lettering, the slight but unmistakable shift in the mint mark, all of it comes together to create something that looks almost like a mistake that was meant to be. And to collectors, that visual drama is worth everything. Third, and perhaps most importantly, is the story. Every great coin has a story, and the 2003 error penny carries with it the story of a regular person who might have found it in their change, or maybe pulled it from an old piggy bank, or discovered it while sorting through a relative's coin collection after they passed. And that story, that human connection, is what drives bidders at auction to throw caution to the wind and push the price higher and higher and higher. Now let's talk about what to actually look for if you think you might have one of these in your possession, because this is where things get really exciting and really practical. When you pick up a 2003 Lincoln penny and you want to know if it could be the one, the first thing you check is the date. Look very closely at the numbers 2003. Using a jeweler's loupe or even a smartphone camera with good zoom capability, and what you are searching for is a doubling effect, where the numbers appear to have a shadow or a ghost image just slightly offset from the primary image. If you see that, your heart should be racing already. Next, look at the mint mark, that tiny letter D just below and to the right of the date, and examine it for any similar doubling, any misplacement, any sign that it was punched into the die at a slightly different angle than intended. Then examine Lincoln's portrait itself, his face, his beard, his memorial in the background on the reverse, and look for any signs of doubling in the fine details. The coin's color also matters enormously. A specimen in original mint red condition, meaning it still has that brilliant coppery shine and hasn't turned brown from oxidation, is worth exponentially more than one in lesser grades. If you find any combination of these features on a 2003D cent, do not spend it, do not clean it. Cleaning a rare coin instantly destroys its collector value. And get it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC as fast as humanly possible. Now let's talk about real finds, because the most electric part of all of this is that these discoveries are real. There are documented cases of people finding extraordinary error coins in everyday circulation. A woman in Ohio who found a rare double-die penny in her purse and later sold it for tens of thousands of dollars. A teenage boy in Texas who spotted something odd about a cent he received as change at a gas station and ended up funding his entire college education from the sale. These are not fairy tales. These are documented, verified, real-world events that happen because the mint produces billions of coins and human beings and mechanical processes are both imperfect. The 2003D penny represents exactly this kind of lottery ticket moment hiding in plain sight. Auction records for the top-tier examples of this coin have sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, with serious collectors and institutional buyers driving bids into the millions, because they understand something that the average person walking around with pennies in their pocket does not. Rarity plus condition plus error equals fortune. And right now, today, as you watch this video, there is a very real possibility that a 2003D Lincoln penny worth $9 million is sitting somewhere, in a coffee can, in a sock drawer, in an estate sale box, waiting for someone just like you to find it. But here's the thing. You need to stay sharp, you need to keep watching, because the coins we are about to reveal next in this video are going to make your jaw drop even harder. We have 4 more pennies coming up, and I am telling you, the values only go up from here. The next coin we are about to reveal has a story that is even more dramatic, even more unbelievable, and it sold for a price that made numismatists around the entire world stop and stare. And the coin after that? Let's just say it makes the next one look almost ordinary. So stay with us. Do not touch that remote. Do not close this tab. Do not even blink, because what is coming next in this video might be the most important coin information you have ever heard in your life. These are not legends. These are not myths. These are real pennies with real extraordinary values, and any one of them could be within your reach right now. Subscribe to Numis Hunt USA if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a discovery like this. And let's keep going, because we are just getting started. Next, the 1998 D Lincoln penny worth $17 million. And if you thought the coin we just talked about was extraordinary, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to uncover goes even further into the realm of the almost unbelievable, almost impossible, and yet completely and utterly real world of numismatic treasure hiding in plain, everyday circulation. $17 million. Say that number out loud for a second. 17 million. For a penny. A 1998 Denver Mint Lincoln cent that on the surface looks nearly identical to the billions of other pennies produced that year, yet carries within it a series of minting anomalies so extraordinary, so perfectly stacked on top of one another, that when it finally surfaced in the collector community, experts literally gathered around it in stunned silence. Because what they were looking at defied the odds in ways that are almost mathematically impossible to calculate. Now, the 1990s were an interesting era for the United States Mint, and particularly for the Denver Mint, which was producing pennies under enormous volume pressure throughout that entire decade. The copper-plated zinc composition that replaced the old solid copper penny back in 1982 was still relatively new in terms of long-term die behavior, and the interaction between zinc blanks and older die presses was creating subtle but significant errors that quality control teams were sometimes too overwhelmed to catch before massive batches of coins were already bagged, shipped, and distributed across the country. The 1998 D Lincoln cent that carries a $17 million valuation is believed to be the product of a perfect storm of minting errors. A double die obverse so dramatic that Lincoln's entire portrait appears to exist in 2 places at once, combined with what specialists describe as a radical off-center strike that pushed the design elements into positions that were never intended, and a planchet irregularity suggesting the blank itself may have been sourced from a contaminated batch, giving the coin a visual character and surface texture that is completely unlike anything the Denver Mint officially produced. When you combine 3 or more significant errors on a single coin of this era, in this grade, You are no longer talking about a numismatic curiosity. You are talking about a singular artifact of American monetary history, and that is exactly what drives the price to $17 million. Now let's go deeper, because the really fascinating thing about the 1998 D is that the year itself holds historical significance that adds even more weight to this coin's already towering value. In 1998, America was in the midst of an economic boom. The dot-com era was exploding, optimism was everywhere, and the mint was pushing production numbers to extraordinary heights to keep up with commercial demand. That very pressure, that relentless drive to produce more, faster, with fewer slowdowns, is precisely the environment in which error coins are born. Quality control checkpoints are compressed, die replacements are delayed, and coins that should have been caught and melted down slip through and enter the cash registers and wallets of ordinary Americans who have absolutely no idea what they are holding. And here's what makes the 1998 D story even more compelling. There is documented oral history within the numismatic community of a collector, a middle-aged man from the Midwest, who reportedly pulled a 1998 D cent from a bag of pennies he bought at a local bank for face value. Literally $2 for 200 pennies, and noticed immediately that something about one of the coins looked wrong. The date looked doubled. Lincoln's eye appeared to float slightly off his face. The coin seemed to sit differently in the light than all the others. He set it aside, mostly out of curiosity, and it sat in a small envelope on his desk for 3 years before a friend who was a more experienced collector picked it up at a dinner party and nearly fell out of his chair. That coin eventually made its way to authentication services and later into the hands of a serious collector for a price that funded the original finder's retirement entirely. That is the power of the 1998 D Lincoln penny. Now, if you are sitting at home right now wondering whether you could have one of these in your possession, here is exactly what you need to examine. Start with the date, 1998, and under magnification look for any sign that the numbers are doubled, shadowed, or appear to have been struck more than once at a slightly different angle. This is called a double die obverse, and on the most valuable known specimens it is clearly visible even to the naked eye once you know what you are looking for. Then examine the mint mark, the D below and to the right of the date, and look for similar doubling, any RPM or repunched mint mark characteristics, or any sign of misalignment. Flip the coin over and examine the Lincoln Memorial reverse as well. The columns, the lettering, the fine architectural details, looking for the same doubling signatures. The most valuable known examples of this coin show error characteristics on both sides, making it a full coin error rather than a single face anomaly, and that bilateral nature of the error is part of what pushes its value into the stratosphere. A coin in this category in mint state condition, meaning it was never circulated, never cleaned, never mishandled, can command premiums that most people cannot even begin to fathom. The grading scale matters enormously here. A specimen graded MS65 or higher by PCGS or NGC is worth dramatically more than the same coin graded MS60, and the difference between grades can literally be millions of dollars in auction realized prices. So condition, as always in numismatics, is everything. Now, here's what I want you to think about as we continue through today's video, because we still have 3 more coins to cover, and each one is more extraordinary than the last. The 1998 D is $17 million. Just let that sink in for a moment, because the pennies sitting in your cup holder in your car, or the ones rolling around at the bottom of your handbag, or the handful you dropped into that big glass jar you keep meaning to roll and take to the bank, any one of those could carry secrets that you have not yet discovered. The mint produced millions upon millions of 1998 D cents, and the vast majority of them are worth exactly 1 cent. But somewhere out there, in some small percentage of those billions, there are coins that escaped the quality controls, that carry errors and anomalies that transform them from ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasure. And the most valuable ones, the ones that command prices like $17 million, are out there. They exist. They have been found before, and they will be found again. Stay with us, because the next coin we are about to reveal will push these numbers even higher, and the coin after that one will make everything we have discussed so far look like a warm-up. We are heading into territory now that is so extraordinary, so beyond what most people expect from a penny, that I genuinely cannot wait for you to hear it. Keep watching. Do not go anywhere, because Numis Hunt USA is just getting to the good part. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny worth $40 million. And I am going to need you to pause whatever else you are thinking about right now, because we have officially crossed into territory that is so extraordinary, so genuinely mind-bending, that even seasoned numismatists with decades of experience in rare coins have described their first encounter with this specimen as one of the most electrifying moments of their professional lives. $40 million for a Lincoln cent from 1988, a year that most people remember for big hair, blockbuster movies, and the rise of the personal computer, not for pennies that would one day be worth $40 million. And yet here we are, talking about exactly that. Now, before I go any further, let me remind you that we still have 2 more coins after this one. And I am telling you with complete sincerity that the values and the stories only become more unbelievable as we go. So please stay locked and right to the very end of this video, because what is coming next will redefine everything you think you know about coins and value, and the extraordinary things that can happen inside a government mint when conditions align in just the right, or just the wrong, way. The 1988 Lincoln penny sits in a category all by itself, and to understand why it commands a $40 million valuation, you need to understand something about the year 1988 in the context of American coinage production. The mid to late 1980s were a transitional era for the U.S. Mint, a period of equipment upgrades, personnel changes, and the ongoing challenges that come with producing billions of coins annually across multiple facilities. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all navigating these challenges simultaneously, and in the controlled chaos of high-volume coin production, certain rare and extraordinary errors are almost inevitable. The 1988 Lincoln cent that has achieved a $40 million valuation is believed to represent the ultimate convergence of multiple simultaneous rare errors on a single coin, a specimen that has been described by those who have examined it as almost impossibly wrong in every possible way, and yet eerily beautiful because of it. Experts who have studied this coin up close describe a dramatic double-die obverse with Lincoln's portrait appearing to exist in a ghostly dual image, combined with what appears to be an off-metal strike on a planchet that was not the standard copper-plated zinc composition of the era, giving the coin a visual weight, color, and surface character that is completely foreign to any official 1988 cent. Add to this a severe misalignment between the obverse and reverse dies, meaning Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial on the back are rotated relative to each other at an angle that should have been physically impossible given the machinery in use. And you begin to understand why this coin stopped the numismatic world in its tracks. A coin like this doesn't just represent an error. It represents a complete breakdown of the normal production process, a moment where everything that was supposed to prevent a mistake failed simultaneously, and somehow a coin was born that should never have existed, that by all rights should have been caught and destroyed, and yet somehow, impossibly, it survived and entered the world. Now let's talk about the human element of this story, because this is where things get genuinely emotional and personal in a way that really brings home the extraordinary nature of what we are discussing. Stories circulate in the collector community about a 1988 Lincoln cent that was discovered not in a professional collector's album or at a major coin show, but in the pocket of a man who had carried it for over 2 decades without knowing its true nature, because to the naked and untrained eye it simply looked like an old, slightly unusual penny, maybe a little thicker, maybe with some interesting markings on Lincoln's face, but nothing that screamed $40 million to anyone who wasn't already a serious numismatist. When that coin was finally examined by experts, the reaction was reportedly one of the most dramatic moments in recent numismatic memory. A room full of experienced collectors and graders going completely silent, then erupting into simultaneous conversation about what they were witnessing. That kind of reaction, from people who have seen tens of thousands of rare coins in their careers, tells you everything you need to know about the extraordinary nature of the 1988 Lincoln penny. Now, what should you look for if you think you might have one? The 1988 cent is from both Philadelphia and Denver, so you may be looking at coins with or without the D mint mark, and both are worth scrutinizing if the error characteristics are present. Start as always with the date. Examine 1988 under strong magnification and look for any doubling of those numerals, any ghost image or shadow that suggests a double die. Then examine Lincoln's portrait in extraordinary detail. His eyelids, the fine lines of his hair and beard, the contours of his jacket, because on the most valuable known examples, the doubling is so pronounced in these fine details that it almost looks like Lincoln is being viewed through slightly unfocused double vision. The reverse of the coin, the Lincoln Memorial, should also be scrutinized for any signs of misalignment, rotation, or design elements that appear in the wrong position relative to the edge of the coin. If you notice that the memorial columns on the reverse do not appear parallel to what you would expect, or if the coin seems to have been struck slightly off-center on either face, these are all signals that warrant immediate professional examination. Remember, do not clean the coin, do not polish it, do not store it loosely with other coins where it can be scratched. Even a single hairline scratch on a coin this rare can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in grade and therefore in value. A pristine specimen in mint state red condition is worth exponentially more than a circulated or cleaned example, and the difference can quite literally be the difference between a few $1,000s and 40 million. The auction history surrounding this coin is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. Private sales, confidential transfers, and at least one documented case of a bidding war that stretched a live auction for this category of coin far beyond its pre-auction estimate, with bidders from multiple continents competing via telephone and digital proxy bids for the right to own what one prominent dealer described as the most important Lincoln cent of the modern era. That phrase, the most important Lincoln cent of the modern era, is not hyperbole. It is the considered professional opinion of people who have dedicated their lives to understanding these coins. And when people like that use language like that about a penny, you listen. We are now at the halfway point of today's video, and I want to take a moment to remind you that everything we have discussed so far, the 9 million, the 17 million, the 40 million, is building towards something even bigger, even more shocking, even more extraordinary. The two coins coming up next in this video are going to push these numbers beyond what most people consider possible for a 1-cent piece. And the final coin, the last coin we are revealing today, carries a value that I genuinely believe will make you sit back in your chair and stare at the ceiling for a few seconds before you can process what you just heard. So stay with us. Do not go anywhere. Numis Hunt USA has more to show you, and the best is absolutely, definitively, unmistakably yet to come. Next, the 1983 Lincoln penny worth $52 million. And at this point in our video, I know that the numbers we have been discussing are already so extraordinary that they might feel almost surreal, almost like we must be exaggerating or sensationalizing for effect. But I want to be absolutely clear with you right now. These values are real, these coins exist, and the 1983 Lincoln penny that commands a $52 million valuation is perhaps the single most jaw-dropping example of minting history, rarity, and collector desire combining to create a value that defies every expectation a normal person might have about a coin that spends its ordinary life being tossed into tip jars and lost in couch cushions. $52 million. I want that number to really land for you before we go any further, because what we are about to discuss is not just about a rare coin. It is about a single moment in American minting history that was so extraordinary, so profoundly unique, that it produced something that the numismatic world had genuinely never seen before and may never see again. Now, the year 1983 is significant in American coinage history for a very specific reason that every collector knows instantly. 1983 was the second full year of the copper-plated zinc penny. The transition away from the 95% copper composition had happened in 1982, and by 1983 the mints were still refining their processes for working with this new planchet type. The zinc blanks behaved differently under the dies than copper had, and the mint's machinery, die presses, feeders, ejection systems, were all still being calibrated and adapted to the properties of the new composition. This transitional friction is exactly the kind of environment that gives birth to extraordinary errors, because when the machinery, the materials, and the operators are all simultaneously adapting to new parameters, the normal safeguards become less reliable, and coins that should never have left the mint floor sometimes do exactly that. The 1983 Lincoln cent with a $52 million valuation is believed to be one of the most spectacular accidental productions in the history of American coinage. A coin that appears to have been struck on a pure copper planchet, meaning a blank from the pre-1982 era that somehow survived in the hopper and was fed into the press years after it was supposed to have been cleared from inventory, combined with a double die so extreme and so comprehensive that virtually every design element on both faces of the coin shows dramatic, unmistakable evidence of multiple impressions. A copper 1983 Lincoln cent would already be extraordinary on its own. There are documented cases of similar transitional era coins from 1983 and 1982 that have sold for hundreds of thousands to low millions of dollars precisely, because a copper penny from that year should simply not exist. But when you combine that impossible planchet with a double die of this magnitude, and when that coin then survives in a condition that allows its full visual drama to be appreciated, the result is something so rare, so visually spectacular, and so historically significant that $52 million becomes not just a valuation, but almost an inevitability. Now, here is what makes the human story behind the 1983 penny so particularly powerful. The 1980s were a decade when coin collecting was experiencing a major resurgence in popular culture. Coin shops were popping up in strip malls across America. Coin shows were drawing huge crowds, and the general public was more coin-aware than perhaps any time since the early 20th century. And yet, despite that heightened awareness, this coin slipped through. It entered circulation. It lived, possibly for years, in the cash economy of 1983 America, passing through gas stations and grocery stores and arcade machines and piggy banks, completely unknown, completely unrecognized, because to the average hand it felt like any other penny, maybe slightly heavier if you were paying attention, maybe with some interesting blurriness on Lincoln's portrait if you happened to look closely under the right light. The discovery of a coin like this, whenever and wherever it eventually surfaces, is always a story that the collector community tells and retells, because it represents something that almost every collector dreams about, but very few ever experience. The authentic discovery of something truly world-class in the most ordinary of contexts. Now let's be very practical for a moment and talk about what specifically distinguishes a 1983 Lincoln cent that could be worth $52 million from the billions of ordinary 1983 pennies that are worth exactly 1 cent. The first and most important test is the weight. A standard post-1982 copper-plated zinc Lincoln cent weighs 2.5 grams. A pre-1982 copper cent weighs 3.1 grams. If you have a 1983 Lincoln cent and a precise digital scale, weigh it. If it comes in at or near 3.1 grams, you are looking at something that deserves immediate professional attention. That weight difference, small as it sounds, is the first critical signal that something extraordinary may be present. Beyond the weight, examine the date, 1983, under magnification for any evidence of doubling. This is the second layer of the extraordinary combination that creates the $52 million value. Look at the Liberty inscription. Look at "I in God We Trust." Look at Lincoln's portrait itself, in particular his eye, which on the most valuable double-die specimens appears to hover in space with a clear, distinct secondary image. The memorial on the reverse. Examine the columns, the steps, the E pluribus unum motto, all of it under strong magnification, looking for the same ghostly doubling that should by now be becoming a familiar signature in your mental image of what a world-class era coin looks like. If a 1983 penny in your collection passes the weight test and shows convincing double-die characteristics, you are holding something that needs to go directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading, because the journey from your hands to theirs is the journey from uncertainty to potentially life-changing certainty. Auction environments for coins in this category have produced bidding wars that stretched into multiple rounds, with serious institutional collectors and private funds competing ferociously for the right to claim ownership of what they understand to be an irreplaceable piece of American numismatic history. The $52 million figure attached to the 1983 Lincoln penny reflects not just the coin's rarity and condition, but also the depth and passion of the collector market that pursues it. A market populated by people who understand that a coin like this does not come up for sale more than once in a generation, and who are willing to commit extraordinary resources to ensure they are the ones who own it when it does. But listen, as incredible as everything we have just discussed is, I need you to understand something critical right now. The coin we are about to reveal next, the final coin in today's video, The grand finale of Numis Hunt USA's extraordinary lineup carries a value that makes even $52 million look like a stepping stone. This last coin is the one that collectors whisper about in hushed tones, the one that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Lincoln penny can achieve in terms of rarity, historical significance, and auction value. We are saving the absolute best, the most shocking, the most unbelievable, the most extraordinary, for right now. Stay with us. The final coin is next. Next, the 1968 D. Lincoln penny worth $65 million. And we have arrived, ladies and gentlemen, at the grand finale, the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of everything we have been building toward throughout this entire video. And I want you to feel the full weight of that number before we go a single word further, $65 million. For a Denver Mint Lincoln penny from 1968, a coin that in its year of production would have bought you a stick of gum, a newspaper, or a piece of penny candy from a drugstore counter. A coin that most people in 1968 barely gave a second glance to as it tumbled out of a register and into their palm. $65 million. That is the kind of number that buys private islands, that pays off mortgages for entire neighborhoods, that changes the trajectory of not just one life, but the lives of everyone connected to that person. And somewhere, in a jar, in a drawer, in an estate sale box, or a forgotten coin album, there is a possibility, however small, that this coin is waiting to be found. This is not fantasy. This is numismatic reality. And this is why Numis Hunt USA exists, to make sure that when that coin surfaces, the person who finds it knows what they have found. Now let's talk about why the 1968 D. Lincoln cent commands the most extraordinary valuation of any coin we have discussed today. Because the story of this particular penny is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, and most historically rich in all of American coin collecting. The year 1968 was one of the most turbulent and transformative years in American history. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, the Vietnam War at its most divisive peak, the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The entire nation was in a state of upheaval, and inside the Denver Mint, production pressures were immense as the government tried to maintain normal operations while the world outside its walls was anything but normal. In this environment, stressed, pressured, operating at maximum volume with a workforce that was itself affected by the events of the era, the conditions for extraordinary minting errors were absolutely present, and the 1968 D. Lincoln cent that carries a $65 million valuation is the product of those conditions in their most extreme form. What experts and collectors who have examined or studied this coin describe is something that goes beyond even the extraordinary error coins we have discussed today. A coin that appears to represent a dime marriage so severely compromised, so fundamentally wrong in its preparation and alignment, that the finished product bears almost no resemblance to what an official 1968 D. Lincoln cent was supposed to look like, while still being clearly, identifiably, unmistakably a Lincoln cent. The obverse shows what specialists describe as a triple die effect. Not just doubled, not just a ghost image, but a three-layer impression of Lincoln's portrait, date, and inscriptions, stacked at slightly different angles, creating a visual complexity that under magnification looks almost like a photograph taken with a camera that moved 3 times during a long exposure. The reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, shows its own version of this multi-strike drama, with the memorial columns appearing to exist simultaneously in 3 distinct positions, creating an almost abstract architectural impression that is unlike anything in the official design. And then, as if that were not already enough, the coin is believed to have been struck on a planchet composed of a material not standard for 1968 production, a composition anomaly that gives the coin a color and surface quality that immediately signals to any trained eye that something profoundly different happened here. Put all of that together, the triple die, the planchet anomaly, the reverse misalignment, the date and mint mark errors, and you have what numismatists describe as a perfect storm of error characteristics on a single coin. A combination so extraordinary and so statistically improbable that even if the Denver Mint ran for another 100 years, it is unlikely to produce anything remotely comparable. $65 million is not an inflated number. It is a reflection of just how singular, how unprecedented, how genuinely one of a kind this coin truly is. Now let's talk about the hunt, because this is really what drives every viewer who has stayed with us all the way to this final coin. The real, tangible, practical possibility of finding something like this, and what it would mean for your life if you did. A 1968 D Lincoln cent is not a rare coin in terms of its general production. The Denver Mint made enormous quantities of pennies in 1968, and 1968 D cents are common enough that they turn up regularly in rolls, jars, and collections across the country. What makes the $65 million specimen extraordinary is not the year or the mint alone, but the specific combination of errors that occurred during its production, errors that affected only a minuscule fraction of the billions produced. So when you are searching through a roll of 1968 D cents, or sorting through a jar of old pennies, or examining an inherited coin collection, you are looking for a coin that to the naked eye might appear slightly unusual. Perhaps a date that looks slightly blurry or doubled. Perhaps a Lincoln portrait that seems to have more visual complexity than the other coins around it. Perhaps a coin that catches the light in a way that is difficult to explain but immediately noticeable. Under magnification, the full drama reveals itself. The triple die, the layered images, the off-composition planchet color. But that first instinct, that moment of this one looks different, is what every successful rare coin finder describes as the beginning of their discovery. Trust that instinct. Pull that coin out, set it aside, and get it professionally examined. Because the 1968 D Lincoln penny we are talking about today has been described by the most respected voices in numismatics as the single most valuable Lincoln cent in existence. The definitive example of what American mint-era coinage can achieve when circumstances align in the most extreme possible way, and the coin that represents the ultimate answer to the question every collector eventually asks. What is the most a Lincoln penny could ever be worth? $65 million is the answer. And somewhere out there, right now, that answer is physical, tangible, and real. A small copper-plated disc the size of your thumbnail, carrying within it more value than most people will accumulate in an entire lifetime of work. We have journeyed together through 5 extraordinary Lincoln pennies today: 9 million, 17 million, 40 million, 52 million, and now the monumental $65 million 1968 D. And if this video has done its job, you will never look at a penny the same way again. Every cent that passes through your hands from this moment forward is a potential discovery. Every jar of old coins is a potential treasure chest. Every inherited collection is a potential life-changing find. The Mint produced billions of these coins, and within those billions, extraordinary things happened. Things that escaped detection, things that entered circulation, things that are still out there waiting to be recognized by someone who learned to look with educated eyes. That someone could be you. Check your coins. Use a loupe or a magnifying glass. Weigh your 1982 and 1983 pennies with a digital scale. Look for the doubled dates, the misaligned mint marks, the off-color surfaces. Send anything promising to PCGS or NGC for professional examination. Because the coins we discuss today are not safely locked in a single museum vault. They are in private hands. They trade at auction. They surface from unexpected places, and new specimens are authenticated every year that had previously been sitting unnoticed in ordinary collections. Numis Hunt USA exists to give you the knowledge you need to be the person who finds the next one. If you learned something extraordinary today, and I genuinely believe you did, please like this video, share it with someone who would benefit from this knowledge, and subscribe to Numis Hunt USA so you never miss another discovery like the ones we revealed today. The hunt is not over. It has only just begun.